I never thought a mango tree would be the hill I'd end up fighting on. But here we are. My name's Tom Whitaker, 57, retired Air Force tech widower, living in a cookie-cutter neighborhood called Ridgewood Hollow, the kind of place where every lawn looks cloned and the mailboxes all wear the same shade of beige. I moved here after my wife Lily passed away 3 years ago. I wasn't looking for trouble. I just wanted peace, a patch of grass, a quiet porch, and something living to take care of. That tree. It started small. I planted it one April morning right after sunrise. A little mango sapling 3 feet tall, fragile as hope. I grew up in South Florida, where mangoes meant summer laughter home. Lily used to make this mango chutney that could stop time. It was our thing. So when I pressed that sapling into the soil, it wasn't about landscaping. It was about keeping a piece of her with me. The dirt on my hands felt honest, real. 3 weeks later, a white envelope showed up on my door, HOA letterhead printed in perfect Times New Roman. Notice of violation unauthorized vegetation, conflicting with community uniformity standards. I read it twice, then a third time. Uniformity standards. I looked at my neighbor's metal flamingo, another's pink bird bath shaped like a seashell. No one found them. I called the HOA office. Some lady named Marla answered, voice sweet but sharp like glass. Mr. Whitaker, your new tree is not in compliance. I said, show me where it says I can't plant a mango. She paused, then replied, it doesn't say you can. That's when I realized what I was up against. They fined me $50 a day. A few neighbors stopped waving. Then one evening I came home to find a bright orange stake in the ground beside my little tree, marked for removal. My blood boiled. That stake looked like a spear in the heart of everything Lily and I built. I wasn't just angry. I felt something old and familiar, the same stubborn spark I had overseas when someone tried to push me around. So I typed up a letter. I dispute the violation. The bylaws do not prohibit small fruit trees. I will not remove it. Dropped it off myself. I didn't know it then, but that was the match that set the whole fire. The HOA president, a man named Gordon Price, dropped off the next letter by hand. He didn't even look me in the eye, just slid it under my windshield like a parking ticket. He was the type who wore pastel polos and carried authority like perfume. The letter said my fines were now retroactive up to $350. Legal threats, lien notices. I laughed out loud, then sat on my porch till dark thinking about Lily, about that tree, about how people could twist rules until they strangled decency. So I dug in. I pulled out the HOA handbook, read every word like a mission brief. Section 7.9b, visible plantings must align with community-approved aesthetics. Appendix C listed ornamental trees. No mention of fruit trees, no ban on mangoes, nothing. They weren't defending a rule, they were defending control. That week I caught a man photographing my yard. Said he was on the architectural review committee. I told him, buddy, you step 1 foot past that sidewalk and we'll have a real review. He backed off fast. Then came the noise complaints, the visible trash bins, even a citation for my dog barking. All of it nonsense. I knew they were trying to bury me under paper, but I wasn't folding. Lily hated bullies, and she wouldn't forgive me for rolling over. A month later, I showed up at the community meeting, khakis pressed folder under my arm. Gordon tapped the mic like a senator. We've received continued reports of non-compliant landscaping. I stood up. You're talking about my mango tree, right? The room got quiet. There's no rule against fruit trees, I said. You're enforcing preference, not policy. Gordon's jaw tightened. This isn't a discussion, Mr. Whitaker. I smiled. Then make it one. Because you're not going to bully me into tearing out something that reminds me of my wife. You could have heard a pin drop. After that, things got uglier. The HOA newsletter featured a blurred photo of my tree under the headline, "Community Violations Undermine Harmony." The neighbors whispered. My trash wasn't picked up 3 weeks in a row. Then one morning I found an anonymous note in my mailbox. Why not just take it down and be done? That one stung not because it scared me, but because it proved they'd turned the whole neighborhood against me. Then came Greg Miller, the HOA secretary. Quiet guy, always looked tired. He slipped a letter under my door. Off the record, I don't agree with how this is being handled. They're talking about legal action. I voted to stop it. Others didn't. Be careful. That was the first crack in their armor. So I started documenting everything, every notice, fine, and photo. Built a folder thicker than a field manual. Then one night while reading old HOA records online, I found a clause buried in a 2003 revision. Any tree planted in memory of a deceased family member, if not obstructing infrastructure, is exempt from aesthetic provisions. I froze. My mango tree was planted for Lily. That was my out. I wrote an affidavit, notarized it the next morning, and hand-delivered copies to the HOA and city clerk. But I didn't stop there. I checked with the city records and found half the HOA's new rules hadn't even been filed properly, which meant they weren't legally enforceable. I could have danced right there in the clerk's office. I launched a website, the Ridgewood Transparency Project. Posted every document, every letter, every bylaw, redacted names, but left the facts. Residents started messaging me. They fined us for wind chimes. They made me repaint my shutters twice. Suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. By the time the next HOA meeting came around, the clubhouse was packed standing room only. Gordon tried to introduce new censorship rules. Greg stood up and said, "We're not preserving property values, we're preserving power." The crowd erupted. People clapped, cheered, shouted. For the first time, I saw fear in Gordon's eyes. That night, I presented my case, the mango folder, the affidavit, the city confirmation that their amendment was never legal. Gasps went around the room. Greg read aloud one of Gordon's leaked emails. "Let's keep him tied up in paperwork." Someone shouted, "You fined me for sidewalk chalk." Another yelled, "You made me cut down my rose bushes." The place exploded. Gordon grabbed his binder and stormed out. 2 weeks later, the homeowners voted to suspend the entire board. New elections followed. Dana Lewis, a school teacher who'd once avoided me out of fear, became president. Greg stayed on to help clean up the mess. They refunded everyone's fines, rewrote the bylaws, and passed what they called the Green Corner Protection Act, our version of Mark's Law. It said no homeowner could be punished for planting something in good faith, especially in memory of someone they loved. I didn't run for anything. I just stayed home trimming the base of my mango tree, now 7 feet tall. One afternoon, Dana stopped by with a framed note. "In memory of Lily Whitaker, whose tree reminded us what roots really mean." I didn't say much, just nodded and placed it at the foot of the tree. A week later, the first blossoms came, pale yellow swaying gently in the morning breeze. I stood there, coffee in hand, and felt something shift inside me. After months of fighting, all the noise and anger faded into peace. That little tree had grown through every storm they threw at it, and so had I. Nowadays, when new families move in, they ask about the mango tree. I tell them, it's got history. Sometimes I hand them a mango and say, "Go taste what standing your ground feels like." And if you ask me, that's what this whole story is really about. Not trees, not rules, not even the HOA. It's about remembering that what you plant in love deserves the chance to grow. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you have fought back or cut it down and called it peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I'm curious how far you'd go to defend what's yours, even if it's just a tree.